So first we'll discuss about what is the overall concept that we need to have, and then we'll move to the designing part. We know that Protractor supports only Angular JS applications. Even Protractor support non-Angular JS application, but it causes the synchronization issues, the compatibility issues between the application and the script designing part. So that is the reason especially this Protractor is going to be used for Angular JS applications what we have in a real-time environment. These Angular JS applications completely depend upon the JavaScript configuration. So this basically it is a front-end framework how the application is going to be handled. As we discussed, there are so many types of applications like single page applications, multiple page applications. In single page what will happen, multiple page what will happen, that we already discussed. Coming to this particular Protractor, this Protractor mainly depends upon two types of files. One is configuration file, second one is spec file. Spec file is nothing but specification file. These two files are very important in order to configure, or in order to execute, or in order to build an automation process using Protractor. In real time, we may have at any point of time, we are going to have only one configuration file. We are going to have only one configuration file, but there may be a chance of multiple spec file, or a spec file with multiple scenarios. If you want to design the scenario, individual scenario in individual spec file, you can maintain it. If you want to design all the scenarios in a single specification file, you can prepare that specification file. Today we will discuss about how we need to design this configuration file, how to design the specification file. This is the main part. After designing this particular thing, please make sure that you are going to practice the same thing, and you are going to execute the same thing using Protractor command prompt or through Eclipse, what we have discussed earlier. But designing part we haven't discussed, right? So that is the reason. Let us start how to design the configuration file first, and then we'll move to specification file. So I'm going to take one more just notepad file. So once we design the script, we need to save this file with .js extension. Okay. Configuration file. Basically, this configuration file starts with the keyword exports. Starts with the keyword exports dot config. Exports dot config. What is this exports dot config? What is meant by exports dot config? Exports dot config is nothing but when you are preparing configuration file, when you are configuring multiple files to this config file, it will try to export everything, and it will try to execute everything by using this config file. Let us see further steps, and then we'll discuss about this exports dot config is equals to the next thing. It is going to start with flower brackets, and here, as we discussed, if you are trying to execute Protractor script, first you need to start Selenium WebDriver. That Selenium WebDriver needs to start by using the command. So I'm going to write the command here. Open command prompt, execute WebDriver -manager space start. So this is the command that you need to execute before going to start the Protractor script. Once you execute this command, what will happen? Selenium WebDriver is going to start in our system. So like that, that will be configured, that has to be configured through config file, how we need to perform that particular thing. So here the next step that we need to make sure is selenium address is equals to, here just we are maintaining everything. As we know that we have a local IP address for this HTTP, every system will be configured with this local IP address, localhost. Okay, this is the selenium address. Even if you execute this command in command prompt, automatically it will display this URL only in your system. This is being running in your system, it is going to display. Or there is one more format of using the same selenium address here. Let us see. Either you can use this format or you can use this format. Direct connect is true. You can use either of direct connect true or selenium address, so and so address that you need to provide. Right now I'm going to comment this one because I'm going to use selenium address directly here. So here not semicolon, it is a comma. Yep. Up to here, this is the standard thing that you need to follow. Next thing, browser controlling commands, browser controlling keywords. Here, the browser can be controlled by using the term capabilities. By using the term capabilities. I'm going to write a comment here. Capabilities needs to be passed to WebDriver. Here, the capabilities are, as I said yesterday, we discussed about this one. So we are going to use capabilities keyword in order to call the browser. Here, browser name. By default, it will take Chrome, or if you are going to provide Chrome here, it will execute the script in Chrome. Let us close this one. Up to here, capabilities has been completed. Now, in designing this particular config file, what is the framework that we are using in Protractor? We are using Jasmine framework. Let us define that Jasmine framework also. Provide the framework name used for Protractor. Here Jasmine is suggestible, so we are going to use Jasmine framework. We are going to use Jasmine framework. Now, up to here, high level configuration has been done. The next step that you need to take care is script level configuration, where we are going to write the scenarios here. We are going to write the scenarios in specification file. Up to here, to start Selenium WebDriver, to start Selenium address by using address or something, browser configuration, browser controlling, what type of framework that we need to use, everything has been done. It is a high level point of view. Next thing, we need to define specification point of view. What type of scripts that we need to execute, how many scripts that we need to execute, how we need to execute everything. We need to mention it in a configuration file. Let us see how we need to mention. Point spec files to config file in order to execute, in order to execute. So by default the keyword will be specs, and we are going to define the specification file as, let's say for example, I have created one spec.js, one spec.js. If I have multiple specification file, then what I need to do? If I have multiple specification file, then it is a comma separated thing. I need to mention to spec.js. Yes, we can do that one, but let us start with this format and then we'll move to the suit point of view. The configuration is somewhat, we need to add two more steps for that. First, we'll talk about how we need to configure individual specification files, and then we'll move to the how to configure that suit. There we need to create one attribute for that. That attribute will be passed to this particular spec file, particular specs. So that everything, whatever spec files in your system that you have created the suit, that suit will be pointed to this particular configuration file. Okay, as of now, if you have multiple specification file, how we need to configure that we have mentioned here. And this is one point that we have been mentioned here: multiple spec files, or a spec files with multiple scenarios, or a spec file with multiple scenarios, or else we will have only one specification file with the list of scenarios what we have been mentioned in the specification file. But here, for our reference, I have mentioned only two things. I'm going to clear one spec file, as I'm going to create only one thing, one spec.js. Up to here, specification file has been configured. Now, timeout options to be passed to the spec. Here we used framework, right? Based on the framework, it is going to configure. So I'm going to write Jasmine node options default timeout interval is 30 seconds. So 30 seconds I have mentioned. If you want to mention less than 30 seconds, we can provide less than 30 seconds. Close this one, close this one. So I hope it's correct. Closure of this one, this one, this one, this one. Yes, we closed in a proper way. This is the format of creating configuration file. So here, first thing that we need to concentrate more is how to configure in a high level point of view, and the second thing that we need to configure more is how many spec files that we can configure, how we need to configure what is the default timeout while controlling this specification file. When you are executing the script, if the element takes more than 30 seconds of time, the script is going to be failed. If it is less than 30 seconds, it is going to be executed. This is what the config file is going to be used. I hope you understood this point. Any questions from this config file apart from the test suite configuration? What is redirections? What redirections? Where you are asking about that? Up to here, whatever the thing that we have mentioned, are there any questions in this format? Are we good? Right now, let us go to specification file, and then if you have any logical related thing like URL redirection point of view, some ignore, some void, if you have any questions like that, we will discuss about that. But main part of this protractor is first we need to configure the files like this, and then we need to execute the same files when we are executing the protractor script. So now I am going to save the script on the desktop. Here the name is conf.js file it is. I'm going to save with the name conf.js. I'm going to close this one. Next, one more notepad I'm going to take. Now we are going to design the specification file. Specification file. The specifications file starts with the keyword describe. The specification file starts with the keyword. As we have public static void main, here the specification file starts with the keyword describe. Here describe states that what you are trying to perform or what you want to perform. That is what we are going to mention it in a describe. So for our reference, for example purpose, I am going to give test Google website. So just I am going to give test Google website. So it is a type of function set of statements that I am going to create here. So that is the reason I use the keyword function. It is a I am trying to test the Google website by using the keyword describe. Now inside this main method describe, we need to write the action what we are trying to perform. Okay, so the action that I am trying to perform here is generally in Selenium WebDriver. If you are designing testing script, what is the common annotation that we are using means @test, @test, like that. Here in Protractor, we are going to use the common keyword is IT. If we are going to provide IT, it understands that this is the centralized system. This is centralized annotation that you are using here. So let us write in at this point. Okay. So here I am going to provide Just I'm going to give validate what we'll have on the web page. Yeah, country name, comma, yeah. Here on the Google web page, I'm trying to validate the name. So I'm trying to validate the country name. Let us see. Orange. One moment, guys. Let us try to validate the country name or mm, logo. That is what I'm thinking. Inspect. Logo we already have, so that we'll take better to take logo, I think so. Yeah, yeah. So let us take this particular point, validate the country name. Okay, now I'm going to design the script. First, browser dot driver dot get URL. What is the URL that we need to mention here? HTTP. So already we know the URL what we need to pass here. We said like we are trying to test the Google website. Here HTTP www.google.com. So here we are going to where locator is equals to by CSS. So it may be by CSS or ID or class name based on the availability what we have. But let us try with this locator because I already tried with the same locator in another system. Where element, first I'll write the script and I'll explain you. Browser dot driver dot find element of locator next thing expect of element dot get attribute text to be. So what is the subtext that I am expecting here? India is the subtext that I am expecting. Right? So this is all about how we are designing the script. Only three statements that we have been mentioned here. The three statements would be: first, I am trying to open the Google website. First, I am trying to test the Google website. For that, I use the keyword describe. In the describe test Google website, I am going to create a function with that same name, and id is the keyword which is used like annotation at the rate test, but here it is the main keyword that we need to use in order to define the action that we are trying to perform. In that action, what we have been mentioned here is I am trying to validate the country name on the Google web page. I am trying to validate the country name on the Google web page. Here, validating the country name is not a simple thing. Here we need to find out the locator. That I'll let you know how we are going to get the logo, subtext, or something like that. Here first we need to navigate to Google web page, www.google.com. url we have been passed. That url will be passed in the browser by using the command browser.driver.get url, so and so url that we have been mentioned over there. Next thing, we are trying to find out the locator by using CSS. On the web page, on the Google web page, by using this type of locator, logo means Google, whatever the logo that we are seeing on the web page. Subtext means what is the subtext displaying under the Google. What is the subtext displaying under the Google that we are trying to mention here? This is just a normal thing that we are having from the console window of that Google web page. I'll show it to you. And next thing, variable element that we are creating here. By to manage this particular browser, we are passing this particular browser locator to this element name. We are creating the element name for that, and I am expecting some value. What is that value means? Element dot get attribute text content. What I am expecting to be India. I am expecting the value to be India. The exact value should be matched with the same value. I am going to save this file as a spec.js file. Sorry, one spec.js file. Any questions in this? Oh, why we mentioned two functions over here? That is what your question, right? Okay, so I understood that question. So we mentioned the function for two times. Why? Because first thing is main method what we have been described. First thing is main method what we have been described here. And second thing is, this is just a sub function what we have mentioned inside the IT loop. So if you are not going to mention, it will not treat these commands as a set of commands. It will execute like a individual commands. If you are going to mention it as a function, the complete statements will form a set, and it will execute the scripts in a set of sequence. It will not divide the script into multiple statements, and it will not execute like a individual statement. So that is the reason we mentioned this as a sub function, and that is a main function in the main method.